Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and tonight on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you A Slice of Hell by Mike Roscoe. This is copyright 1954 by Crown. And Crown is not a publisher that I have talked much about on this channel. They really weren't that big into mysteries as far as I can tell, and only published them occasionally. That said, I think this book is very nicely published. Terrific cover design with just a few colors, almost like a Miro kind of style. Just really neat. And we have to give props to the cover designer, which I always like to do. His name is Arthur Hawkins. So Arthur Hawkins and A Slice of Hell. And I'm going to show you the back cover, which is basically a bunch of blurbs about this series. And not that you necessarily have to read them, but a lot of the blurbs are only a couple of words or a sentence. And interestingly, that sort of matches the style of this book, in which there are many one-sentence paragraphs. So James Patterson, you were not the first to do that. I'm going to just open to a page randomly, and you can see how short the paragraphs are. And that definitely leads to, lends itself to a more rapid reading experience. So before we get too much into the book, just a little bit about the authors. This was an author team, and the author's name is a combination of the two gentlemen whose names were Michael Russo and John Roscoe. So they put their names together, and that became their pseudonym. And they were actually employed as detectives, real-life detectives, with the Hargrave Detective Agency in Kansas City. So they, bring their wealth of experience to the book, and even the setting. The setting is Kansas City, which I was looking forward to, because so many mysteries are set in New York or Chicago. I thought it was going to be kind of cool to get a little bit more insight into Kansas City, which I don't really know a lot about and have never visited. But the investigation rapidly takes our hero out of Kansas City and over to San Francisco, where much of the book takes place. So I didn't get the Kansas City feeling that I was hoping for, but that's really neither here nor there. Why did I choose this book, you may be asking? Well, for a rather perverse reason, I will admit. Quite some time ago now, I had a job that I called my little slice of hell. It was a job that was really a job where I was doing work that I loved, but for a company that I hated and for people whom I did not respect. So just dragging myself in there every day was an ordeal. And I decided to just kind of go with it by calling it my little slice of hell, so that I could put it in its own sort of compartment in my life and not allow it to take over my whole world, because that would have led to much unhappiness and depression. So I saw this book and I thought, could this have been written about my experience at X? Of course, knowing that it was not. But I like the fact that the title was something that I, in my own mind, had thought of, before seeing the book. So it seemed like the universe's way of telling me, read this book. It is, as you could probably suspect, a hard-boiled PI novel, and it does have a rather cynical dedication, which I will read to you. To those who believe in love, and to those who used to. So between the cover and the dedication, you're probably not in for a barrel of laughs, which is okay, because as I've said many times, I do like noir fiction. This book, I would say, in addition to being noir, it is pulp. it is truly what we think of as pulp fiction. It's got a pulp style, all the pulp tropes, and so I think a lot of your enjoyment of this book depends on whether you can kind of get into something pulpy or not. I get a kick out of pulp fiction sometimes. I mean, I wouldn't want a steady diet of it, but on this one, it had been a while since I read anything that I would consider pulpy, and so it was a sort of a nice change of pace. So a little bit about the plot. Our lead character is Johnny April, a great detective's name. He starred in 5 books by this author team, and this was the 3rd of 5. Johnny April is kind of what you would expect a pulp detective to be. Not particularly brilliant, rather tough, rough around the edges, lacking savoir-faire and subtlety, and kind of going at everything with both guns blazing. And that is very much what Johnny April is. It starts out with him getting a phone call from an elderly lady whose dearest friend, who lives in San Francisco, has died. And they've been very close friends over the years, and she misses her friend terribly. Her friend left all of her possessions to this nice old lady, Miss Woods, and so Miss Woods wants to hire Johnny to go out to San Francisco and pick up the belongings and bring them home to her. And she's only willing to pay for a bus ticket. She won't pay for an airplane ticket. And Johnny is thinking, well, I feel sorry for the lady, but I'm not taking a bus from Kansas City to San Francisco. That's out. Not long after that, he gets a call in person from a member of the local underworld. And he explains that, he's got his fingers in various pies, none of which are legal. And he's concerned because there's a rumor that a thug, a crime boss from San Francisco, is planning to muscle in on his trucking monopoly there in Kansas City. And he wants Johnny to go out there, find out if it's true, find out how big a threat it is, and so forth. So Johnny thinks, well, if I'm going to be going out to San Francisco anyway, with my plane ticket paid for, I can also do a favor for this nice old lady and just bring her friend's stuff back to her. So rapidly, the scene shifts to San Francisco, and this is when the bodies start to fall. There are plenty of bodies to be dispatched. And this made me think about the role of death in a mystery novel, which, that doesn't sound like the deepest possible thought. But I guess you think about, or I think about mysteries about murder are really about solving a case, solving who did it. It's not about a continuous stream of killings unless you're reading a serial killer book. I mean, sometimes or often there's another death in the middle to kind of help keep the plot moving along. But in pulp and in some of these old school dime novels, it's just kind of one character falling after another without much sympathy or without much character development. And some of the deaths are intentional and some are accidental. But it's kind of, a little strange feeling to have your hero so involved in the killings of other people. So that felt a little bit weird to me. But again, it was pulp, so I just sort of went with it. And so I can't really give you much more beyond that because I don't want to ruin the plot of the book for you. But what I will say is that I found the book a quick and fast read, partially because of these one-sentence paragraphs that are the norm and that just keep the pages flipping quickly. I found, though, that the story wasn't staying with me so much, I guess because I didn't feel a particular affinity with Johnny April, and few of the characters that you meet live long enough for you to develop an affinity or a liking for them. And then things just kind of resolve super quickly at the end with very little summary or remembrance or, you know, a summing up or a capstone of the plot to help you kind of make sense of what had happened throughout. So I read this book in about 3 nights, just because I was tired, or I probably would have finished it in 2. And I found that each time I picked it up, I kind of was having a hard time accessing what had happened earlier. And I had to flip back and say, oh yeah, that happened, and that happened, and that happened. But I guess that's not a particular point in the favor of this book, that I had a hard time holding it right at the front of my brain where I could just pick it up and go off to the races with it. Now, in contrast, I just read a couple of weeks ago a book by John Connolly, a writer that I really like, sort of paranormal / occult mysteries, and his Charlie Parker series character called A Book of Bones. And that book was like 700 pages. It's a tome, but every time I picked it up, I knew exactly where I was going and where I had been, because he's such an amazing writer, and the pictures that he draws and the characters that he develops are so present with you. You don't need to make an effort to remind yourself about them. They just stay with you. So that was a point of contrast with this book. I don't know that Roscoe really hit the big time. Like I said, he only wrote the 5 books, and the contemporary reviewers, I think, thought of them the same way that I did, as, you know, entertainment, not too demanding on the intellect, not good for a couple days read on an airplane or on a train or wherever, and so forth. Well, let me read you some of the blurbs. Fast action, says the New York Mirror. Strong fare, says the Dallas Times-Herald. For the real whodunit fan, says the Dayton News. A must for mystery fans, says the Columbia Missourian. So, not lavish praise, but I think recognition that if this is the kind of book that you like, you will probably like this book. So, I don't really have much more to say about it other than to show you the very beautiful cover again, to remind myself of those 2 years of my life that I commuted into a little slice of hell every morning and left my little slice of hell every night. And that's what I've got for you tonight. I will be back again soon-ish with another mystery for you, but the takeaway from this video is pulp, right? Pulp fiction, very much not in the form of a short story, but in the form of a novel, and not nearly as amazing as Quentin Tarantino's film Pulp Fiction, but you knew that without my even having to tell you. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night. Oh, and I should just mention, as a little bit of a coda, I was whittling around with the settings on YouTube, because I don't really make these videos with any sort of production values, and I was pretty delighted to see that the channel now has over 100 subscribers. Honestly, when I started posting these videos, I just thought of them as kind of a one-man book club that would let me talk out loud about books that I I enjoyed or wanted to discuss. So, and I thought, if I got 5 subscribers, I would be happy. But 100 feels like a really good number. So I want to thank everybody who subscribed, and particularly people who comment and add to the conversation, and encourage everyone to add, whatever you would like to add to the conversation. Recommend books, give alternate perspectives, do whatever you want to do from a literary criticism perspective, just to, I don't know, keep the channel's mojo going, or to just help create this community of those of us who love reading forgotten mysteries. Okay, thanks everyone. Good night.